What's good, people? Thank you as always for passing by the channel. Much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. I've just got up. Long night of watching boxing. But shout out to ITV again for putting the fights on. Fantastic. Obviously, we got Broner versus Pacquiao. When was that? A couple of months ago. Now, we just had Spence versus Garcia, which went exactly as I kind of predicted it would go. Exactly as I thought this fight would play out, minus the stoppage, and we'll talk about that later. That's how I exactly thought the fight was going to go. I know some people had Mikey Garcia possibly winning. I still don't know how people thought Garcia was going to win. I really don't. Again, I don't consider myself a boxing expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like I know my boxing. And I feel like the guys that watch this channel, I feel like it's a hardcore kind of fan base. I feel like they know their boxing. And unless you're Mexican, and I understand the allegiance there, but unless you're Mexican, I don't know how you would have picked Mikey to beat Errol Spence. And then you had these experts, again, so-called experts. In fact, they are experts because that's what their job title says they are, who picked Mikey as well. And I'm starting to believe, and this is my conspiracy hat on now, I'm starting to believe they're almost like those Instagram social model influencers, right? The ones that, I don't know, put an ad out for fucking toothpaste and everyone then goes and buys toothpaste. I feel like that. I feel like in the lead up to this fight, and I remember it now completely, as soon as the fight was announced, everyone was like, oh, Errol Spence is going to run through Garcia. Like, what? Stupid matchup. Kind of what I was saying in a couple of the videos I did. Like, Errol Spence is just too big, too strong. Garcia hasn't got a chance, right? And this affects pay-per-view. I mean, that kind of mindset and thought process affects pay-per-view because people are not going to be tuning in, especially paying what there was $74.95. People are not going to be paying $74.95 knowing that it's just going to be a one-sided beatdown. I mean, Errol Spence hasn't got that kind of pull and push yet. Nor is Mikey. Look, both of them haven't, I don't think, ever fought on pay-per-view. Errol Spence did over here against Kell Brook. That was based on Kell Brook more than Errol. So it's almost like, well, I'm not going to pay $74.95 for a one-sided beatdown. Then out of the woodwork come all these so-called experts who then start picking Mikey. And those people that were like, I ain't paying $74.95, are like, but you know what? He's saying he's going to win, though. Might have to tune in. So it's almost like they are Instagram influencers in the sense that they influence people to tune in. I actually do believe they influence people to tune in. I don't know if they actually really believe what they're saying, but they know that if I type this or I say this, based on my background and my knowledge, people might then tune in and pay $74.95. So I actually believe that half of them, or maybe even more than half, didn't actually believe that Mikey was going to win anyway. But I think they said it because they were told to say it. It was a one-sided beatdown. It really was. Going in, I think a lot of the talk was boxer versus puncher. It wasn't something that I concurred with. I actually thought that Errol was as good as a boxer as Mikey. I mean, I've said it. It's on tape, so to speak. But that was the narrative going in, right? That it's boxer versus puncher. That if Mikey can use feints, use jabs, a bit of foot movement, in and out, he's got a chance, right? He's got a chance and maybe nicking a decision. He's never going to knock Errol out, and he's probably not going to put a dent in Errol, but he might win the rounds just by picking up points, almost like amateur boxing, just landing shots, picking up points and moving. Errol completely flipped that. And I think Errol was upset in the lead up to the fight, hearing that narrative, and he completely just outboxed. Everything Mikey was said or going to do to get the win, Errol done. Errol landed more jabs. Errol was more in and out of the pocket. Errol done all the feints. And so Mikey's probably going back to the corner each round thinking, he's outboxing me. So our plan going in, he's executing our plan. What are we going to do? And he had no answer to it. It was almost perfect from Errol Spence. It was like, if I had to score it, I'd probably give him an 8.59 out of 10 in terms of performance. I mean, he done everything right? Everything was perfect. His punch output was perfect. When he needed to turn up the heat a little bit, he turned it up. The way he kind of stalked and put Mikey in the corner and started landing big shots. He jabbed to the body, he jabbed to the head. It was perfect, right? The only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because he didn't get the stoppage, and that's what he would have wanted. He would have wanted to stop the smaller Mikey Garcia. I mean, that's the only blemish on it. But he didn't get the stoppage. So you have to give it an 8.59 out of 10. For Mikey, I know people are going to say, yeah, he's brave. He came up from 135 pound, but regardless, it was a poor performance. And let's be honest, it was for a guy that is unbeaten, for a guy that's a 40 world champion, a guy that has as much experience, maybe not in big fights, and maybe that played an influence, but a guy that's got experience nonetheless. It wasn't the greatest performance. I don't think he ever landed more than 10 punches per round. So his punch output was poor. Look, people spoke about this, and this was the stupid narrative coming in again, that Errol Spence was a bit ploddy. If anything, it was Mikey that looked ploddy. Mikey looked extremely heavy. I don't know what he came into the ring as. I remember he said that he might not come into the ring more than 152, 150. He definitely weighed more than 152 pounds. I wouldn't be shocked if Mikey weighed about 160 pounds in the ring, and it was just too much. It's like they got it all wrong. I also think he should have been pulled after around 9 or 10. I really do. That's when Errol started turning up the heat and started landing some very hurtful, spiteful shots. I think rounds 1 to 5 was almost just a boxing lesson, right? So Errol put on a boxing lesson, and I don't think it was landing anything spiteful. He was being very respectful of Mikey Garcia. That's the respect he showed for Mikey. He was very respectful and didn't really turn up the heat. Round 6, he definitely turned it up. And from round 6 to 9, he was landing spiteful shot after spiteful shot after spiteful shot. And I don't know why either the ref, Mikey, or Robert, his brother, didn't pull him. I don't understand. This machismo thing, is that the right word? That I can stay in there and take a beating for 12 rounds is just such bollocks. It really is. I don't know if it's a Mexican thing. I don't know what it is, but it's just ridiculous. Because when you're 60 and you're sucking your food out of a straw, you'll be thinking about that, because it means absolutely nothing. Live for another day. Live to fight another day. And those punches, they might not affect you your next fight, but those punches, those cumulative punches will affect you in years to come. You hear old boxers speak about it all the time, right? Those cumulative punches, and he took some heavy punches from a known heavy puncher like Errol Spence. And I just feel like it just wasn't worth it in the end. It wasn't worth it. But yeah, it was a dominating performance. What was it? 120, 108, 120, 108, 120, 107. One of the rounds was a 10-8. That's probably the round where it should have been stopped, was a 10-8. One judge gave it a 10-8. Dominating performance. And I was trying to, as I was watching it, think of a performance between two elite fighters, which they are, that has been that one-sided. And I was trying to remember the scorecards of Mayweather Berto. But Berto's not really elite, but a top fight. I think that was quite one-sided, but it wasn't like this, because that wasn't a beatdown. It was more of a sparring session. And I actually think Errol's probably had harder sparring sessions than that. In fact, he definitely has. He's been sparring the Charlo brothers. So that was a one-sided beatdown. Max Kellerman after tweeted and said that if Mikey won, and this is very true, by the way, Mikey would have been considered pound for pound number one. Absolutely, by the way. Absolutely. With Errol winning, he said that Errol now is a top 5 pound for pound. I disagreed completely. I don't think Errol beating a 135 pounder, which it is, let's be honest, that's the facts, it is, makes him a top 5 pound for pounder. What do you guys think? I think I replied back and said my top 5 are, in no order, by the way, Crawford, Usyk, Loma, Canelo, Inui. Those are my top 5. Errol probably does float in and around that, maybe 7, 8, if I really think. But he's not. I'm not having you beat up Mikey Garcia. That makes you a top 5 pound for pounder, not at all. And in terms of what next for both, Mikey's the interesting one. Obviously, because Mikey fought at 147. The idea, especially, is he's not a spring chicken anymore. The idea of, does anyone know what that spring chicken means? Hopefully everyone around the world knows what spring chicken means. The idea of him trying to drop down 12 pounds now to 135 and have that super fight. Is it still a super fight now against Loma after that beating? I don't know, but the idea of that, I don't know if it makes any sense, if I'm honest with you. I feel like he might stay at 140, which makes more sense. But now a lot of the top 140 guys are locked into the World Boxing Super Series, so he could have another fight at 147. There are easier fights to make, I guess, than Errol Spence. Guys that are not as big, not as strong. So he might stick around. And I don't know. I don't know what he does. For Errol Spence, obviously he wants the Manny Pacquiao fight. Understand. He wants that money, right? He wants that money. And Manny Pacquiao is big money. He'll be getting, because it'll be a big draw on pay-per-view now, this one. He'll be getting I don't know, 10 million plus, maybe more. So I understand why he wants it. But I think I want Errol to stick to what he's been sticking to for years. And his tagline has been called what? Strap season, right? Strap season is I'm collecting all the belts. And I want him to stick to that. So I think he should hunt Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, and then Terence Crawford. He should do that. He's still young. He'll get these big pay-per-view fights. That's just him. He's becoming somewhat of a draw now. So I'd like for him to call out Keith and Sean rather than face Manny Pacquiao. Let Keith do that. If Keith wants Manny Pacquiao, let him do that. But I think he should go for Sean Porter next. It's a belt he will get. He will beat Sean, and then start chasing the other titleists. But yeah, that was dominant. That was dominant, one-sided, and again, as expected. What do you guys think? Let me know. Peace.